She looks at you not as you are, but as who she imagines you might become. You feel it in her eyes, don't you? That flicker of hope, or maybe it's hunger. You think you're being seen, but you're not. You're being measured, scrutinized, analyzed like a blank canvas waiting for her to paint her version of you. But here's the thing, that masterpiece, it's not you. It never was. Carl Jung warned you about this long before you ever felt its sting. And he didn't do it with soft, motivational words either. No, he did it with the sharp, cold precision of a man who spent his life peering into the deepest recesses of the human psyche. He dedicated his life to studying the unconscious mind, the part of your consciousness that operates under the surface, silent but ever present. And what he discovered about women is unsettling. You see, women don't just fall in love with men. They fall in love with the idea of them, with the fantasy, the projection, the version of you that exists only in her mind. And the most disturbing part is that most women aren't even aware they're doing it. They think they're choosing you, but what they're really doing is choosing the you they've built up in their imagination. A version of you that exists to fulfill a role in the private movie they're playing in their heads. And when you no longer fit the script, she changes the actor, not the story. Jung called this projection the animus, the inner masculine image that lives within every woman. And when that animus is immature, underdeveloped, or unchecked, it turns into a tyrant. A force that drives women to chase dangerous men and reject the good ones. It makes them argue without reason, dominate without wisdom, and moralize without accountability. Jung wasn't sugarcoating anything. He saw it for what it was, a spiritual possession. A state where the woman doesn't even realize she's no longer acting from her own consciousness. She's acting from the shadow of her inner masculine fantasy. And men, you fall for it because nobody ever taught you how to spot it. You confuse being desired with being truly known. You mistake being chosen with being understood. You believe her when she says you're different, but in reality, you're just the latest face she's cast in the role she's been rehearsing since childhood. When the fantasy collapses, when the mask slips, you're left confused, betrayed, humiliated, wondering what went wrong. But here's the truth. You didn't do anything wrong. You just stopped being convincing enough. You stopped being the actor she needed to fulfill the role in her play. Jung called this the process of individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming whole within yourself. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most men never start that journey. You've been trained to seek approval, to chase validation, to let women define your worth. And as long as you do that, you'll keep playing the same role over and over again, getting replaced every time the audience gets bored with you. Individuation isn't glamorous, it's brutal. It requires you to confront the parts of yourself you've buried, the weak, the insecure, the broken. It demands that you stop blaming women for not seeing you and start seeing yourself. Because here's the one thing that Jung understood that most men never will. You don't become a man by being chosen. You become a man by choosing yourself. You don't earn your worth through her affection. You earn it by standing alone, fully awake, fully responsible, and fully alive. A man who has confronted his own unconscious mind can no longer be seduced by projections. He's no longer a puppet in someone else's fantasy. He's the author of his own story. Jung observed that the greatest tragedy of modern men isn't rejection. It's their willingness to mold themselves into whatever shape they think will be accepted. You call it compromise, partnership, or love. Jung called it self-betrayal. When men ignore their own psychic development, they become slaves to the feminine projection. They bend themselves, like wet clay, into whatever shape women demand of them, all while not even realizing the women themselves have no real understanding of their own desires. You stop being a man. You start being a mask, smiling, nodding, agreeing, performing, until you forget who you were before you put that mask on. And women? They sense it. They sense it in ways you'll never understand. What you think will make her love you, obedience, predictability, availability, becomes the very thing that makes her lose attraction. Why? Because the feminine instinct, according to Jung, isn't drawn to comfort. It's drawn to mystery, to risk, to the man she cannot fully define or control. The moment you make yourself fully known without boundaries, without a backbone, you don't become more lovable. You become invisible, disposable, replaceable. And yet, here's the paradox that keeps most men trapped. You fear being alone more than you fear being fake. You'd rather lose yourself than lose her. You'd rather live a role than face the terror of standing alone without applause. But Jung taught that until a man embraces that solitude, he will never be free. Jung wrote that individuation is not for the faint-hearted. It requires you to die before you dieto, let the false versions of yourself burn away so something real can emerge. But here's the truth that nobody will tell you. Individuation is lonely, terrifyingly lonely, because as you walk this path, you begin to see things you can't unsee. You begin to recognize the games people play, the masks they wear, the lies they tell themselves just to feel safe. And when you try to share what you see, they mock you. They call you cold. They call you arrogant. They accuse you of being the problem. But you're not the problem. You're the mirror. And people hate mirrors when they show them things they don't want to see. Jung knew this well. He spent decades studying patients, terrified of confronting their own shadows, the dark, rejected parts of their psyche. And women, Jung warned, are often raised in cultures that reward them for avoiding that confrontation. They're told they are pure, emotional, intuitive, and complete just as they are. But Jung didn't buy it. He saw the greatest danger to women was their unconscious animus, the voice inside them that speaks with false certainty, authority, and moral superiority. If a woman doesn't face and integrate this inner masculine force, she becomes a prisoner of it, and she projects it onto every man she meets, blaming them for the very war she refuses to fight within herself. And here you are, thinking you're her savior, thinking if you love her enough, prove yourself enough, perform well enough, she'll finally choose you for who you really are. But that's not how projection works. Projection is a thief. It steals reality and replaces it with illusion. Until both men and women wake up from that illusion, they'll keep repeating the same tragedy, blaming each other, never realizing they're both dancing with shadows. The woman who once saw you as her hero will one day see you as her enemy, not because you changed, but because you failed to fulfill the fantasy she cast upon you, and she won't even realize she's doing it. Jung called this psychological betrayal inevitable, when neither party takes responsibility for their own inner world. You didn't lie to her. You didn't betray her. You simply failed to live up to the myth she created. You were never him to begin with. So, what do you do now? Do you blame her? Become bitter? Join the chorus of men who mock women, resenting them for failing to meet your needs? Or do you do what Jung would demand? Do you turn inward? Do you begin the difficult work of individuation? You can't save her from herself. You can only walk your own path. And if you have the courage to keep walking, to stand firm in who you are, you'll eventually reach a point where something beautiful happens. You'll find yourself, not as a mask, not as a projection, but as a man fully rooted in who he is. And when you reach that point, the paradox will unfold. Women will no longer need you to perform. They'll no longer need you to carry their soul. They'll simply be their whole and real standing beside you. Because when you stop performing, when you stop playing a role, you become someone they can truly meet. And that's when the real magic happens.